for reminding
No
me.
problem, ma'am. No
Yeah.
problem, ma'am.
Yes. All right. So yes, I guess I've started recording. Um, yes. All right. So yes. So what I was saying is that we'll dedicate 2 classes to study the perpetuation, the how the concept of beauty has moved forward with time and how we have reached this idea. So what I wanted to ask you all is that how do you think the concept of beauty has changed in the last 10 years, 15 years, according to you? So just an example, okay? So let me know that. How is it different from the last decade, the concept of beauty? Do you think there has been any change, any major change? If you don't think that there has been any change, mention that as well, that there's not much change that has happened. Okay. If you want to take a longer duration, 50 years back, the concept was this and now it is this. Talk about that also. Okay. So yes, just tell me, how do you think the concept of beauty changes? Okay. Tell me.
Um, Ma'am, so I think the concept of beauty has now included this idea of technology, perhaps, and
Very good.
how kind of it has gotten this avant-garde idea of beauty, where um, we have more abstract, like postmodernist idea has more developed in the last decade or so. And also somehow, because of all the movements and because of whatever um, people have been fighting for, there's somehow a sort of acceptance, more inclusion now
Very
of
good.
body image, and I don't know, yeah.
Very good, Nupur. So the key factor, I think, what you said in your answer was the concept of technology merged with the concept of beauty. Okay, so it is something that did not exist before, because this polarity existed before as well. There would be always people who are fighting the current, trend. Okay, so there always were people who were saying that this concept is lagging somewhere, and that is how the idea moves forward in time, right? So that is always there. But what is new in our generation, perhaps in these last 15, 20 years, is the idea of, beauty depicted through technology. Okay, so we have Instagram now and Facebook and all these social media. And you are only beautiful, when when the number of likes increase. Okay, but is that real beauty? Okay, so that is the question. Is that real beauty, or is it beautiful? Even if I say that not on my picture, if I post a poem online and people like that, so is it a beautiful poem? Okay, should my poem be judged by the number of followers and by the number of likes on the poetry? Okay, but if not, okay, let's say if that is not the you know measure for this thing, for beauty of my poem, then what is? All right, how can I say that it is not the measure of my poem when always it has been so in time? Okay, if you get a good patron, your books will be published. Okay, it will reach more people, you'll become more famous. That has been a norm, right? So we can't suddenly say that no, before it was not like this and now it is all because of technology. People are only behind likes and followers. Okay, it has always been like that. Okay, so this is the dilemma that the writers from every period of time, they these kinds of things, these kinds of doubts, they fight. Okay, and this is why we study Western aesthetics. Okay, we study aesthetics basically. Okay, Western aesthetics, because we are not getting into Eastern or Indian aesthetics and everything. We are going to discuss Western aesthetics. All right, so yes, so we'll begin with the definition of aesthetics. Okay, so in a very general way, I've already told you that you have told me that it's the appreciation of beauty, not just beauty. Aesthetics, when we add an S there, then it becomes a branch. Okay, a branch of study. Okay, and it deals with appreciation of beauty. Okay, so aesthetics deals with appreciation of beauty. Okay, a more scientific definition would be, if you want to note this down, you can do this. A more scientific definition of aesthetics would be the study of sensory and emotional values, the study of sensory and emotional values also known as judgments of sentiment, and taste. Okay, underline the word taste. Judgments of sentiment and taste. Full stop. It is a critical reflection on art. It is a critical reflection on art, culture, and nature. Art, culture, and nature. Can anybody tell me what kind of jobs or let's say fields are associated with aesthetics today? Just to name a few. Can you tell me? People who study aesthetics.
Florists.
Sorry?
Non-florists.
Florists. Okay, very good. Yes. That has to do with nature, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Natural appreciation of beauty. Okay, appreciation of beauty of nature. Okay, florist. Very good. Okay. More in terms of art. Can anybody tell me?
Ma'am, reviewers.
Film reviewers. Very good. Okay. Yes, very good. Film reviewers. Okay. What do film reviewers do? They study the aesthetics of the picture. Okay. They study the technicalities, of course, but through that they're studying the aesthetics of the film. Okay. Whether the film appeals to the audience or not. Appealing means what? Appealing to the judgment of taste, appealing to the eyes, to the ears. Okay. Appealing to your mind. That is what they study. Right? Okay. Anything else? Anything else? One more example, let's take.
When it comes to nature, ornithologists.
Ornithologists, okay, very good. Yes. So that is more like a scientific field, you can say. Okay, more scientific. They don't study the aesthetics of the birds, okay, but their categories and everything. Okay, but let's say a painter, okay, or a reviewer of paintings. Okay, let's say a museum reviewer or something like that, who goes and reviews paintings of birds and everything. So they become inclined more towards aesthetics of birds. Okay. Let's say a food critic. Okay, a food critic. Okay, so a food critic goes to the restaurant and judges the food according to the taste. Okay, whether it appeals to the taste or not. So basically, this field of aesthetics has to do with senses. Okay, your senses. So you are studying your senses, so be it film theory, art theory, literary theory, music theory, all these kinds of theory people study, and they are dealing with aesthetics. So it's not a branch that is only there for literature students. Okay, it's not like that. It's a very general branch. Okay, very much like psychology. Okay, we study psychology in literature as well. We study psychology in other fields also. Okay, when we have to do some kind of psychological analysis or something. Okay. So yeah, so it's a very general field. All right. Now, you are literature students. You tell me who was the earliest. I'll not say aesthetic critic. Okay, or I'll not say something like that because the term aesthetics came much later. Okay, but you know the concept of aesthetics, and can you tell me who is the oldest literary critic who studied kind of this beauty and theory of beauty and everything? Who is that? Can you tell me? The oldest critic, basically.
Plato, I think.
Plato. Very good. Was anybody there before Plato? Anybody was there before Plato? Who was Plato's,
Socrates.
Very good. Okay. Socrates. He was there. Okay. But of course, we don't know much about his documents, Socrates' documents and everything. So we can't actually study what he had to say about this. So, of course, when it comes to studying the theory, we begin with Plato. You all are right. Okay. So now, before we begin with Plato, let's understand this, that in Plato's society, there was something known as the body politic. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of the body politic? Have you heard about this term? Body politic? Anybody?
Ma'am, like the society in which there was the centralized society where you had some sections of society who belong to the central, which form the body. So the entire society has to work like this body of a human being, which has to
Very
or
good.
something, and other sections would be out of this.
Very good, Anshita. So basically, people from Plato's era, they believe that the whole society that they live in is, a human body. Okay. So the state, the politics, even the gods formed different parts of one body. Okay. So that is why it is known as body politic, because every organ in the body is important. Okay. And they all function as one organism. Okay. So it's not like there is some part of the society that is different from the body. Okay, they have different functions. Some have smaller functions, some have more prioritized functions, of course, but they all exist within the central system of the human body, that is known as the body politic. Okay, it's kind of like a metaphor. Okay, and can somebody tell me what were the four major areas of art studied in those times? Four major areas, can anybody tell me? Of course, there was poetry. So I'll give you that, poetry. Apart from that, can you tell me what was there?
Tragedy, comedy, lyric poetry, and satire, like satire play, I guess.
Anshita, you're talking about, so I am talking about the different kinds of art. Okay. So you are giving me subsections of poetry. Okay. So under the huge big umbrella of poetry, there's epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, satire, play, okay, all those things, okay. But apart from poetry, what else was there in terms of art in the society? We are talking about Greece, so what would be the most obvious thing?
Some paintings or
Drama.
Very good. Okay, yes.
Architecture.
Very good. Architecture. Okay, so there were four major categories. Okay, poetry, and very related to poetry, but still different, drama. Okay, so drama and poetry were two very different things. Okay, so poetry, drama, architecture, and music. Okay, music was also very important. You know that orchestra was there as the heart of every play, right? So what was orchestra? There was a chorus. We still follow those norms, right? There was a chorus. Okay, there were some instrument players. Okay, so that music was very important in the Greek era. We owe everything to the progress of music and everything to the Greeks, right? So yeah, so these were the four categories. And when Plato came in, he told us about the priority of different categories in the society. Okay, so what he said was, poetry is the finest of the fine arts. Okay, he said poetry is the finest of the fine arts. Okay, so he categorized into different categories, that poetry comes on top. Okay, then we have painting, then we have architecture. Okay, so what was his basis of dividing it into different sections, and which was more important? His basis was how much medium, what the amount of materials you used to produce the art, to produce that kind of art. Okay, so if it is less medium and more impact, then it becomes greater art. Okay, so for poetry, what do you need? A pen and paper. All right, nothing more than that, just a pen and paper. Okay, and you produce an art which can move the entire world. Okay, so it has that capacity. That's why it's the finest of the fine arts. All right, for painting you need colors and different kinds of colors and brushes and a canvas, more material. Okay, more material, again same kind of impact, but material is more, so the ratio becomes uneven. Okay, again in moving forward, in architecture. Okay, in architecture, after that we come to sculpture. Okay, so in sculpture, you need a rock, you need chisel and hammer. Okay, and then you make some kind of beautiful piece of art that moves people. All right, so again more material required, and in the end comes architecture, because for that you need giant buildings and cement and rock and whatnot. Okay, sand and a lot of other yes, so for that you need a lot of material, so that's why it comes in the end. Okay, so this is the hierarchy of the art that Plato gives us. Okay, another very important concept that Plato brought to us. So we are not dealing with all the things that these critics talk about. Of course, Plato talks about a lot of things. Aristotle talks about tragedy and all those. So we are not getting into that. We have already done that in different subjects. Okay. So I'm not getting into that. So we are only dealing with the topics that concern aesthetics. Okay. So yes. So Plato, another very important concept that relates to aesthetics is the concept of mimesis. Right? What is mimesis? What is mimesis? You know this, right? Mimesis?
Some sort of imitation.
Very good. Imitation. So what Plato said, we all know that Plato was a person who wrote a lot about poetry, but he did not personally like poetry so much. Okay. He said that poetry should be banned from the ideal society. Okay, right? He is the one who said that, right? That poetry should be banned from the ideal society. Why do you think he said that? What was the real reason, like apart from this concept and his logic and everything? What do you think would be the real reason Plato would say that there shouldn't be poets in an ideal society, according to you? What do you think?
Because he believed that the poets would create a sort of emotion in the audience which would not be which would kind of stop them from being perfect citizens of the society, and it would also it is also extravagant and flamboyant for his
Very good. Very,
belief. It is
Ankshita, you're
not.
absolutely right. Okay. So yeah, so as we know that, of course, Greece was one of the, it was the first democracy and everything, but it was constantly at war. Okay. It needed people to go to war, right? And poetry taught us otherwise. It taught us love, right? That there's no importance of war and stuff like that. It made men, these, masculine people, very weak, okay, and soft hearted. All right. They did not see the point of war. Okay. And if such people existed in a society, there wouldn't be any war, and that would be very nice, but not in a very political manner. It would be very bad for them. Right. So that's why Plato said that. And Plato, let's remember, he was from the royalty. Okay. So he wasn't like Socrates, a madman on the streets. Okay. He was from the first class economy. Okay. So he did not believe that, poets should hold this importance in a society. Okay. But the reason that he gave was, first reason, of course, what Ankshita said, that is another very important reason. And he gave this reason also, that it makes men weak. Okay. The first important reason that he gave, though, was that poetry is twice removed from reality. Okay. It is twice removed from reality. What is the meaning of this? He mentions this phrase called, it is mimesis of mimesis. Okay. Mimesis of mimesis. That is, it is an imitation of an imitation. Okay. So what he meant was, there is a perfect image of everything that God has created. Okay. Let's take an example of, let's say, this bottle. Okay. So this is an object, right? So this is the neutral position of this object, a physical form of a bottle. Okay. But its perfect image or its perfect form exists only in the divine world as an idea. Okay. As an idea. It has not been created. The best bottle has not been created yet. Okay. It is a perfect idea. Okay. But somebody made this bottle and now it exists in material form. All right. Now, if I as a poet I write a poem based on this bottle, or I as a painter, if I draw a painting of a bottle, okay, so then that painting or that poetry will be twice removed from reality, from the perfect version of things. Okay. So there is one perfect version. Somebody made it, an inferior version of that thing, and I am writing a poem on that inferior version. So it's twice removed from the perfection. That is what he said. Okay. Something to ponder upon. All right. So we are not writing upon, later on we'll see that poets, to solve this problem, critics came up with a concept of absolute beauty. Okay, absolute beauty. We'll see what that absolute truth or absolute beauty is. So we ignore this physical format of this object and then directly jump onto the perfect image that exists in the divine world or whatever. Okay, does not exist basically. Okay, so yeah. So this is why Plato said that the poet should be removed from an ideal economy. And of course, because they are not good for economy, politically and socially. Okay. So yes. So this was an important concept given by Plato. Moving on, the next important critic, of course, was Aristotle. And Aristotle did not agree with Plato's version of things, although he owes a lot to what he has learned to Plato. Okay, he was his teacher. Okay, Aristotle formed the first school. Okay, he was the first one to document everything properly. Thanks to him that we have, access to whatever was written and whatever was discussed and how the society was. All right. So his thinking was very diverse. He did not believe that poets should be banned from the ideal economy. Okay. He in fact believed that poets should be there because why did he believe that poets should be there, and why this weakness inside men's heart was important? Can anybody tell me the term that he uses in the definition of tragedy? Okay, which means the purgation of emotions.
Purgation of emotions.
Yes. What is that term?
Catharsis.
Very good.
Catharsis, ma'am.
Very good. Very good.
Catharsis.
Okay, catharsis. And we write it as the spelling is CAT, of course, CATH, but he used it like this. Catharsis. Okay. Romans loved the letter K. Okay, cosmos, catharsis. Okay. So yes. So he said that, if there is no catharsis in the society, if we don't purge our emotions, it will, it will impact us negatively somewhere or the other, maybe on the battlefield itself. Okay. So if there, this, right? If there is a lot of heaviness in your heart and you're carrying a lot of emotions inside you and there is no outlet for it, okay, then it is bound to, take form of something else, either anger or frustration or just breaking down. Okay, so if we don't want that, if we want to think logically and do take actions logically, we need to express our feelings. Okay, and so basically Aristotle was the first one who actually talked about mental health, if you see it like that. Okay, he talked about mental health because he said catharsis is important. Okay, he said that when you go and watch a tragedy and when you cry there looking at the death of the hero or downfall of the heroine or things like that, you feel as if you are impacted by it and you cry, you let your emotions out, and then you go back happy. Okay, because you have purged yourselves of the negative feelings. Okay, and he said this is important in a society. Such a good fellow, right? So yeah, so Aristotle's most important things when concept when it comes to aesthetics is this concept of catharsis. Okay, rest of the things, of course, it's important from literary point of view when you're discussing tragedy and everything, but this is what is important for us right now. Okay, and also he talks about another concept. He talks about character formation. Okay, character formation. Now, what is the meaning of character formation? He says that this catharsis leads to character formation. This is not the character in the drama. Okay, character formation as in your character formation. Okay, so it's he says it's like there is a layer of feelings that that cover your heart. Okay, so once they're purged, only then you really understand what your heart's shape is. Okay, what you're really inside, what your character is like, whether you are a fearful person, whether you are a kind and compassionate person, whether you are a romantic person, whether you are an evil person. Okay, only when you purge the outer layer you'll understand what character you are. So it builds in character formation in the men of the society. Okay, he was basically selling poetry like that. Okay, so this is what he said, that it builds character. Okay, and that character is important in the battlefield, right? So yes, so moving on, the next important critic was, who was it? It was Pythagoras. Okay, Pythagoras. Now Pythagoras he came before, but during this Aristotelian era, he was studied once again, and he keeps on repeating. Okay, in the form of Neoplatonists. Okay, Pythagoreans. Okay, they have a common idea. Okay, so Pythagoreans had this. The most important concept when it comes to them is the concept of harmony. Okay, the concept of harmony. What is the meaning of harmony? Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of harmony?
Peace, kind of.
Very good. Okay. In a metaphorical, figurative way, peace. In a more literal way, what does it mean?
I think it means like a perfect balance or something.
Very good.
Um,
Okay. Perfect balance. I'll go with that. Okay. Perfect balance of things. Basically, it has to do with music. Okay. Harmony has to do with music, right? Yeah. Harmony means music. Balanced music. Okay. A music that is not noise. Okay. Not the music of, these uh, art contemporary artists who just shout. Okay. Not like that. Like proper music with instruments, with so many instruments playing together in perfect balance, as Ankshita said. Perfect balance. Nobody goes here and there, not one note up, not one note down. Okay, just perfect. Okay, and everything comes together as one music, right? So that is harmony. So what Pythagoras said was, basically, we know Pythagoras as something else, as a mathematician, right? So he came with Pythagorean theorem. What is the Pythagorean theorem? Anybody who is good at maths, come on. Anybody, quickly. You remember, you must have studied this in 9th or 10th or something. Quickly, just for fun.
Ma'am, was it the one with the triangle?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So hypotenuse square is equal to the side square plus base square. That was his, that was his masterpiece, right? That theorem. Very good, Rameshwar. Yes. Very good. Okay. So that is how we remember Pythagoras, right? But what we don't know is that he was an amazing philosopher. Okay. And what he believed was that this whole universe is mathematical. Okay. And he said that maths or geometry, not maths particularly, geometry is not something that is invented. Okay. It is something that is discovered. Okay. So we don't invent maths or geometry. It exists. We only discover it. Okay. And there is this particular harmony in the whole universe, the same kind of harmony that is there in music, that is there in mathematics. Okay, so all these three things are similar like that, so varied but so similar: maths and music and the universe. Okay, in everything there is geometry, there is mathematics. Okay, there's perfect harmony of things. Okay, that's why we are existing in a perfect balance in this entire universe. Okay, so he studied the stars and everything, and he said that we exist in this harmony that we can't contemplate, we can't understand. Okay, but there is this, it's not chaos, it's not messy, it is not like it does not have any kind of structure. There is a proper structure, we are just yet to discover it. Maybe sometime some scientist will come and they'll discover this whole pattern and they'll say, oh, and it will all make sense for us. Okay, it existed in this pattern, right? So he said that that is the pattern that we have to find, pattern in different things, and you can find it in everyday things, the pattern of your schedule, the pattern of your behavior. In everything there is a sense of harmony. You need to find that sense of harmony. Okay, in your daily life you need to find that sense of harmony, that what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what gives you peace. Okay, you need to decide and contemplate like that. Okay, so yeah, so you can just write a small paragraph if you want about Pythagoras. Pythagoras believed that numbers are universal archetype, that numbers are universal archetype. I'll just type it. Yeah. And they should be venerated. And they should be venerated. That means they should be respected. Okay? They should be venerated. Full stop. They are the root of all things. They are the root of all things. Full stop. This is very much like the mystical the mystical concept of music, the mystical concept of music and the periodical harmony, and the periodical harmony. Put a dash and then write, because both the things, that is music and numbers, okay, both the things have the qualities of polarity, harmony, and proportion. Polarity, harmony, and proportion. Three very important things. We'll discuss this, okay? Continue writing, full stop. According to Pythagoreans, the followers of Pythagoras, okay? Pythagoreans, comma, mathematics is discovered rather than invented. Mathematics is discovered rather than invented, and is the ultimate reality of the universe, and is the ultimate reality of the universe. Full stop. Last line. Pythagoras was the first to call the universe a cosmos. Full stop. Leave a line and then write, he called, okay, you can write this also, important it is. He called the cosmos as a single living creature. That consists of all the living things. A semicolon, and you can write, it is one whole of wholes. WHOLE, wholes. Okay, it is one whole of wholes. Okay, so when we talk about cosmos is not just the universe. Has anybody seen that series on Discovery or National Geographic? I don't know which one. Cosmos. Anybody? If you've seen it, the same spelling, KOSMOS, Cosmos. Has anybody seen it? It's a very famous series. Okay, if you have time, do watch it. If you love the mysteries of universe and mathematics and stuff like that, okay, do watch it. Okay, it's an amazing series about the evolution process. Okay, evolution of the universe. Okay, so there also we see that cosmos is not just the universe. Unlike many people, unlike what many people think, that cosmos means universe. No, it's not like that. Okay, cosmos means microscopic and macroscopic. Okay, so cosmos can exist within the environment of one bacteria, the colony of thousands of bacteria sitting on this coaster. Okay, and it can also mean the entire universe, the whole formation of one galaxy, or a nebula, whatever. Okay, so cosmos exists from the smallest things to the biggest things. Anything that encompasses living organisms and everything in between, non-living, living, everything. Okay, so basically everything. All right. So yeah. So he said this cosmos is one whole of wholes, all the wholes together. So one wholes of this my room, one whole of your room, okay, one whole of the whole Pune University, one whole of Pune, okay, and one whole of India. All these things together existing inside one whole of the cosmos. Okay, so one hole of holes, many holes. Okay, so yes, so he said that universe, first of all, universe is geometric. Okay, and geometry is beautiful, and that's why universe is beautiful. Okay, and he talks about the similarity between music and universe: polarity, harmony, and proportion. What is the meaning of polarity? Polarity means what? Poles.
Consisting of two
Poles,
poles.
right? Two extremes. Okay, so just like in music, we have major and minor. Any musician here in this class? Anybody who plays any instrument or sings or whatever has learned something? कोई तो होगा, come on. Somebody?
Classical music.
Anshita, so you know that in Hindustani classical you have tivra and komal swar, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So and in Western classical we have major and minor chords, right? So we have polarities. And acha, Rameshwar plays tabla. Then you also know Rameshwar, that there is major and minor, tivra or komal. Okay. We have treble and bass in music in tabla, right? एक बड़ा तबला होता है, एक treble वाला तबला होता है. I don't know what that is called. Okay, but yeah, there are two extremes, right? And why do we use these two extremes? To create harmony, right? If we play only one thing, there wouldn't be any harmony there. There wouldn't be any balance, sort of. So if you look at the whole world also, that things will become so easy for us. Okay, that not every person can have one personality. There would be good people also, there would be bad people also in a society. Okay, that polarity will always exist. Okay, that good versus evil will always there, and that's why every mythological work or any kind of spiritual work, they have this concept, good versus evil, because that is how the universe will proceed. If everybody becomes good, perhaps nothing will happen, we'll cease to exist. Okay, maybe if everybody becomes bad, even then everything will be destroyed. Okay, so yeah, so there needs to be some kind of polarity in the society, in the universe, in music. Okay, and this is how the universe and music, they have to do with numbers, right? Major, minor, negative, positive. Okay, so they are similar in that sense. Such beautiful philosophy. If you read Pythagoras, you will see that how didn't we know that he was not just a mathematician? Okay, he was such an amazing philosopher. Okay, but not many of his works exist. But whatever is there, I can put the links for it and everything. You can study that. Okay, but it's beautiful. Okay, so yeah, so even today Pythagoreans exist, and they study Pythagorean, his philosophy and his works. All right, so yes, so moving on, after Pythagoras and these Neoplatonists, so yes, so Pythagoras came before. Okay, but after Plato there were these people called the Neoplatonists. Okay, and Neoplatonists were very what do you say, they took a liking towards Pythagoras. Why? Because Plato, of course, was not into poetry. Okay, he said poetry was bad, but they liked numbers. Okay, geometry. Okay, because they sought this scientific approach to things. Okay, so they said that we'll study this. Let's forget about poetry. But they failed to see that this is also poetry. This is also philosophical in nature. This is purely poetry. Geometry is poetry. Okay, so yeah, so it consists of feelings, so many feelings. So yes, so these Platonists were the people who re-studied Pythagoras. Okay, and then again they'll be restudied once again. We'll come to that later on. So after this, there came in the 1st century a very important critic called Longinus. Okay, Longinus, you've heard about him, right? What is the most important concept given by Longinus? Anybody?
Ma'am, sublime.
Very good. Very good. Okay, the sublime. What is the meaning of the sublime? Can anyone tell me? The sublime.
Which is something noble.
Okay, noble. Noble. What is the meaning of noble? Like, noble in what sense? In deeds? Sublime means what? What is the meaning of sublime? Can I just say that sublime means beautiful and good? Is sublime can sublime just be called very beautiful and very good? Like you said, noble, very noble. Is it just that, or is it something more than that? Okay, now before we come to this,
it is perhaps something that is not exactly directly visible in certain ways.
okay,
It is the idea that is subtle, like the beauty which is in a way not very extravagant and in your face. So when Longinus talks about sublimity, he's also talking about the fact that he thought that poetry needed to have that kind of quality, a certain quality which he called sublimity. Again, I
very
forgot the term. There was this term with H, something with H.
with H.
I think.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Mama, I'll check it and tell. Like there was that term which he says that some good poetry needs to contain that certain
Okay. Okay.
idea in order to be considered.
You are right. Okay. And the most important thing that you said is the idea of is the word the idea. Okay. First of all, it is not something. It cannot be called good or bad or noble because it's not a thing. First of all, okay. So it is an idea. Sublimity is an idea. Okay. Now let's remember this, that before Longinus, what was the purpose of writing
Ma'am, I
poetry?
had a question.
Yes,
Ma'am, is Longinus a Neoplatonist?
he can be called a Neoplatonist.
Okay.
Yes, he can be called. There is a debate between critics about it. Some people say that it has some resemblance. If you see it like that, like every other critic will be related to something. They are inspired by something. They are influenced by somebody who came before them. Okay, it's not like they just go polar opposite. It's not like that. They of course they borrow something from their predecessors. Okay, so yes. So coming to Longinus. So before Longinus, there was this there were three important purposes when it came to literature. Why was literature written? Can anybody tell me three important purposes? Why was literature or poetry written? Anybody? First one I'll tell you. First one is to instruct. Can anybody tell me the second one?
To entertain?
Very good. The other word for to entertain is to delight. Okay, to delight. So to instruct and delight was the initial agenda for poetry. Then came other critics who said that there should also be another uh, uh, element, which is persuasion. Okay, so then till Longinus, there were three important purposes to poetry: to instruct, to delight, and to persuade. Okay, these were the three important points, and they were very strict about it. Okay, that if your poetry, if you just wrote a poetry about a flower, okay, what is the purpose of that poetry? So romanticists would heavily disagree with this thing, that they'll say that no, it's not like that. I can just write a poem about a flower and it does not need to instruct anybody about anything. Okay, it can just be my personal expression. Okay, but before Longinus, that was not the idea. These three purposes should be filled. It's not like any one of them should be fulfilled. All three of them should be fulfilled. Okay, so the poetry must instruct, it must delight, and it must persuade somebody to do something. Okay, so if you write any tragedy, it should have some kind of instruction that this is good. If you do this, then you will be blessed, and if you do this bad, you will be cursed. There should be some kind of instruction there. If it was not, if they were so not subtle, okay, it was not clear enough, they would use chorus to get that message to the audience that this is bad. If you read Antigone, you will see that chorus comes in between when it is very obvious. They'll say that this is bad, very much like old Bollywood movies. Okay, they'll say something if they feel like the audience wouldn't understand because it's in English or something, they'll repeat that same dialogue in Hindi again. So yeah, something like that. So they were very strict about it. But when Longinus came, he said that apart from these three things, he said that, again, I agree that these three things should be there, but there's also something known as the sublime that should be there in the poetry. Okay, and what he meant by the sublime was that there should be some, like Ankshita said, some subtle matter in the poetry, or some subtle quality in the poetry which moves people. Okay, very important word, which moves people. Okay, so it moves people to a transcendental level Okay, it from beyond the good and bad, it moves them to a certain realm. Okay, that certain realm is unnameable, but it has certain qualities. What qualities? Like it should have the medium that is used should have lofty language. Okay, beautiful, noble. Like Komal said, noble language should be there. Okay, noble diction should be there. Metaphors should be used. Figures of speech should be used. Okay, and then when you use all these things, the audience or the reader who reads it should be able to move to a different realm altogether. Okay, so transcendental, concept, moving concept. Okay, so you can just write, I'll dictate it to you. Longinus said that the sublime not only interests or participates, not only interests and participates the reader, in the bracket you can write, as the other three purposes do, as the other three purposes do, bracket close, comma, but transports the reader, in a way that a kind of spell is cast on him. A kind of spell is cast on him. A kind of spell is cast on him. Okay. Leave a line and then under quotation marks, you can just write between quotation marks. This is the proper definition. Sublime, comma, sublime, wherever it occurs, sublime, comma, wherever it occurs, comma, consists in a certain loftiness of language, loftiness and excellence of language, consists in a certain loftiness and excellence of language, by which the greatest poets, loftiness and excellence of language, by which the greatest poets and prose writers have gained eminence, and won themselves a lasting place in the temple of fame. Gained eminence and won themselves a lasting place in the temple of fame. Full stop. The sublime not only convinces the reason of reader, comma, but takes him, underline this, out of himself, okay, quotation marks closed. Okay, now till Longinus there was nothing, so the term aesthetics had not yet been coined, all right, but this is what aesthetics is, right? When there is something that is not just important for reason and the wit, okay, it's not just important for our reason that logically this is right, okay, but what about something beyond it? Okay, there are certain paintings, or let's say certain movies, Okay, which even critics, say that, as in terms of technicalities, this movie is lacking. Okay, that there should be a proper plot or whatever, there should be good language, and there should be, proper dialogues and everything. But those, check boxes are not ticked. Okay, but still that movie has certain X factor that, makes you like it. What is that X factor? That is that X factor that, Longinus is talking about, takes him out of himself. Okay, so he's basically talking about aesthetics of the picture. He's not using that term, but he's talking about aesthetic of the art, right? Something that is not just important for the reason, something beyond reason. So from here, we actually begin talking about aesthetics, talking about discussing about beauty. So sometimes Longinus is also known as the first romantic, okay, the first romantic critic, okay, because he's for the first time talking about something beyond this instruction and delight and all these pompous didactic, things. Okay, that this is the duty of poetry. Duty is such so not poetry. Okay, duty is a word that is like almost the opposite of poetry. Okay, poetry is something that pertains to emotions and your heart and feelings. Okay, it's not a zimmedari, it's not a responsibility. Okay, so yeah, so he was the first one who talks about the concept of beauty and the sublime, right? He also adds points about imaginative depth, imagination for the first time. That's why it's called the first romantic. Nobody else had talked about fancy and imagination. Okay, so imaginative depth is what he talked about. He talked about thought. Okay, talked about diction. Okay, so I'll just write it out, the 5 important things: the diction, thought, imagination, or fancy. Sometimes imagination is also known as fancy. Okay, music. Okay, did I write 5? Language. Diction is already written, right? Yeah, there's just all these: diction, thought, imagination, and music. 4 things. Okay, so that's why he's also known as the first romantic critic. Okay, now we'll end the class here. From in the next class, we'll discuss from medieval aesthetics, okay, to the modern aesthetics. Okay, now there are certain important names like Francis Bacon, okay, Sir Thomas Aquinas, all these people who are important. Okay, then we'll move on to the writers that are important for us from the syllabus point of view. All right. Did you understand whatever we discussed today, or was it too much? Oh. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Now, what I want you all to do is today. Yes, yes, Ankshita.
Ma'am, I don't know if it's related to the, it might be related, but I'm not sure. Ma'am, when we talk about Western aesthetics, or when we talk about, when we talk about Indian aesthetics on the other side, ma'am, why is it that, like, if we search Western aesthetics just literally and just like on Google search in that sense, and when we look at Indian aesthetics in that sense, Google search again, ma'am, why is it that Western aesthetics is usually related to the philosophy side, like,
Right,
if
right.
I may call it. And Indian aesthetics, when we look at it, it's mostly like rags and dance.
Yeah, yeah.
Because,
It is. Yes.
ma'am,
Yeah.
because I was
Because I'll tell
going
you
through
why.
a thing,
I'll tell you.
net
Yes.
thing where all that was there under Indian aesthetics was mostly ragas and dance and nritya and thing. And when I looked at the Western aesthetic thing, it was all, of course, the ones we know, Baker, Francis Bacon, and Thomas Aquinas, and Kant, and
Right,
things, ma'am.
right,
So
right.
I don't know why is that
It's
different.
a very good question, Ankshita. Very good question. Okay. So I'll tell you what the reason behind it. Okay. What is the source of aesthetics? The source of aesthetics is the art itself, right? First of all, the source of aesthetics is art. If there is no art, how would we study the aesthetics behind that art? First of all, okay. So even when it came to Greeks and these Western philosophers, first of all, there was art, there was tragedy, and there were paintings and sculptures and architecture. When they looked into it, they started studying it. Okay. Now, what happened in the Western, world is that it got branched out into a different field altogether. Okay, like a field that studies these art forms. But in India, first of all, the art form is so varied. Okay, so varied. It exists in multiple dimensions. Okay, already there are so many Vedas and Upanishads and Purans and epics to deal with, so many poetry, regional poetry, okay, formal poetry, informal poetry, poetry that is paid, that were, sponsored by patrons, poetry that was written individually, bhakti movement, so many things, okay, to study. So first of all, the art base was not so linear in nature in India. Okay, it was very varied, and it did not sprout out, it did not branch out into a proper field called aesthetics. Okay, so meaning of aesthetics is particularly even here and in India, it means beauty. Okay, and it means a field that studies beauty of things. All right, so there it became a branch of philosophy properly. Okay, that deals with how we look at beauty, how we perceive beauty, but that did not happen in India. It can happen now, like as you are students right now, you might study, maybe it becomes such a important field that everybody studies Indian aesthetics, and then it becomes a proper field of philosophy, but it has not happened yet. Okay, there, of course, I'm not saying that there are no philosophers who have studied this. Of course there are, but that name did not catch up here. Okay, so we individually there would be studies based on the aesthetics of different art forms, but it did not sprout out into a proper linear graph of a field. Anshita, was I clear enough? Was I able to answer?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So of course, so now if we are doing it, and it takes time. Like after independence, we are again exploring what we have left amiss. Okay, before that, India was not it was not a one national, it did not have that national drive. Okay, there were different provinces who did their independent studies, who did their independent art forms and everything. There was not a combined effort ever in India. Okay, it happened only, it is beginning to happen right now. So whatever happens will happen in the next 50 to 100 years. It will take some kind of growth if it's popular enough. All right. So yeah. All right. So then see you all in
Thank you,
next
ma'am.
class. Yes. And what I want you all to do is that go and read a little bit about Pythagoras. Okay. Go and watch on YouTube these videos on Cosmos. Okay. The Discovery series. Okay. Cosmos. Just a few episodes. Just get yourself curious and thinking, because this is a subject where you need to be curious enough. All right. You need to keep thinking and then doubt yourself again and not reach any conclusion. Okay, that is what the subject is about. If you reach any conclusion, you're going wrong. All right, so yes, see you all again then. Okay, I'll leave the material and whatever links are important on the Teams app. All right, you can check it out. Bye bye, have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, one
Thank you.
second, just how do I take the attendance? Do I take a screenshot, a picture of this, or this gets recorded?
Ma'am, I think there is something on the participants list there
Okay,
where you could download the list, I guess.
I'll just take a picture for just for
Yes, ma'am.
safety. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. See you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
क्या है कि जैसे सही तरह से बोल रही प्रजास्ती ने दूसरा जितने टेलर कौन सी